Hello and welcome to Massive Crit. Now that nearly all the 40k factions have had their bespoke kill teams, it's got me wondering in which direction Games Workshop is going to take the game next. But before we do, I just want to give a massive shout out to Glass Half Dead and Battle Brothers Tabletop for allowing me to shamelessly spam my content on their Discords. Thank you so much, chaps. And if you haven't already subscribed to these guys and what you're playing at, they're much better at this game than me. Go and give them a sub now. Well, without any further ado, away we go. So it could be argued that Kill Team First Edition or the previous edition was a game to get people into was the gateway game to get people into 40k. It had very similar aspects. It had a list building aspect that people seem to really enjoy. It had shared the same stat lines as 40k. It had the same gameplay as 40k, that you go and I go instead of the alternative activations. The models were the same as 40k, but I suppose they would be. And the factions played very similar to what they did in 40k, apart from the orcs actually, because we had grot leaders instead of like knob leaders for the orcs, and that was hilarious. But in the end, specific lists for each faction started to become like predominant in the game, a bit like what we see in 40k, but without the consistent FAQ updates. In this new edition, everything has changed, and in my humble opinion, I think it's a much enjoyable game than what it used to be. And as Glass elicits, the game's become more about how you play it rather than what you play, and I find myself agreeing with that observation. I mean, if it takes like the absence of list building to the extent that we see in 40k to make the game more balanced, I think that's a good idea. And what's the old joke? If you want a more balanced game than play chess, it's like, nah, mate. I'll go and play Kill Team, thanks. Kill Team is no longer about what is the best list, but it's more about how is the best way to play it, which is subjective to each player from the next. I mean, a shooting player might choose like a list like Vet Guard or Pathfinders, or a more melee-focused player might go for Void Scarred or Novitiates. Granted, there are some imbalances with some of the new teams that are released, but it doesn't seem to affect the game in the same way as imbalances do in 40k. I mean, a good player with any specialist team will always do better than a bad player with the best specialist team, and it just seems like with every release the game becomes more balanced as we fade away from the compendium teams. But that's all I really want to say about that, because Glass has already made these points in a couple of his videos. So if you want to see those videos, I'll make a little bibliography in the description below so you can check them out. But my point is Kill Team still a gateway game to get into 40k? In my opinion, no, and I don't think it should be, and this is why. I recently made a video on the lore surrounding the Nachman Gauntlet as told in the Nachman book, and I found myself very immersed in the different sub-factions contending in the area. I mean, we had different Corsair pirates, Kroot and other Xenos mercenaries. We had mutants and witch hunters, enforcers, renegade and traitor guard, and subhumans like ratlings and what are they, longshanks and beastmen. And this got me thinking, however painful that might be, about Kill Team's place in the 40k franchise. I like the idea of smaller scale conflicts within the massive setting of 40k. I mean, I can imagine Deathwatch kill teams operating to eradicate a Genestealer cult uprising. I mean, I can imagine Eldari Corsair pirates plundering their way through space hulks and space stations in the Nachman Gauntlet. I can imagine the Alpha Legion like infiltrating and destabilizing sectors. Like, some of the 40k factions are well suited to like smaller conflicts, like, I don't know, Deathwatch, Genestealer cults and Drukhari, and there are some like factions and sub-factions that have their own models, but not enough models to be represented in their own codex, such as like Harlequins, Inquisitors, Sisters of Silence, and now Eldari Corsairs. But there's so much lore that just isn't represented on the tabletop, and having Kill Team as a standalone game, I think, could be the perfect platform to manifest this. Kill Team would be a great fit for like an Inquisitor or a Witch Hunter with their retinue. There'll be loads of different options for like different specialists within the retinue, or we could have like Dark Apostle and Rogue Psychers like leading mutants or cultists. Like we could even have Orc freebooters, like some pirate looking orcs that GW have just teased us with for years but never really released anything with, apart from like the odd model. But the list could be endless. We could have Zote mercenaries, enforcers, rogue traders, like the Fallen, like renegade guard, like one of the many Xenos races that capitulate to the Tau Empire, like the Vespids or the Gals or whatever they're called. And for me, we've already had a taste of this with the release of the Corsairs in Nachmund, which were a previously unrepresented faction, but now in the limelight. And I've got to say that the models, I think, are the sexiest looking models that GW has released for Kill Team. Yeah, I mean, in the previous edition, didn't we have like a Rogue Trader expansion with the Elucidian Star Striders and the Galapox Infected? I mean, they're absolutely quality looking models, and I'm absolutely gutted that they were released during my sabbatical away from the hobby. But I think that's a great direction for Kill Team to go into. Like, if we can have another Rogue Trader expansion, or maybe something different this time, like an Inquisition expansion or a Fallen expansion, that would be absolutely epic. My point is that Kill Team could be the perfect platform to host some of the aspects of the 40k lore that don't necessarily fit into the big 40k game, like the more niche elements of the lore that are still thoroughly enjoyable. I mean, I've just finished reading the Eisenhorn trilogy, and that's the reason why I keep going on about the Inquisition so much, is because I want like a little Inquisitor and retinue running around, like battling against a rogue psyker and like their bewitched enforcement officers or rogue guard or something like that. Would be really cool. I know I can kit bash and proxy the models with existing rules, and I will do that to some extent, though I don't really know how I would kit bash Zotes, and don't know how I'd proxy them either. But I just think there's a great opportunity here with the game in its current state, how it's being balanced, like whole teams being balanced against other teams rather than individual data sheets or whatever GW's doing to make the game so enjoyable. Let's face it, we love our 40k fluffy as. This may even help pull players from 40k into Kill Team, because it won't be competing with 40k, it'll be offering something different and unique but within the same universe, because there doesn't seem to be that much crossover from the players of 40k into Kill Team. I mean, this isn't breaking news. I mean, just looking online, people seem to be in one camp or the other. I mean, not necessarily everyone, but I can even see it in my own little Singaporean bubble, and the players that I've met here and play Kill Team with don't necessarily play 40k, and that's myself included. So is Kill Team still a gateway game into 40k? I'm not too sure, but I hope not. I hope it stands alone. And I should have said this at the start of the video. I still think Kill Team's a great gateway game into the hobby, just not necessarily a gateway game into 40k anymore. So do I think we're going to get this kind of thing? This kind of like exploration into the unexplored lore, sort of like tabletop wise? And nah, probably not. I mean, Space Marines they're up and coming, aren't they? They've been left out in the cold, and Space Marines don't like the cold. So we're probably going to get in like a Kill Team box set next with like a generic Space Marine team, and then just loads of White Dwarf teams for the different chapters there on after that, and then just probably a new edition. But what do you reckon? Are you happy with the way Kill Team has turned out so far? And what are you expecting in the future releases for Kill Team? More like the old edition with elites and commanders, or something a little bit more experimental like me? let me know in the comments down below. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, may you always crit massive.